We are live. Ian of Austin, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. It is Wednesday, 3 p.m. We do what we do. Wednesdays, REALMigos. We got a lot of news to get into. We want to talk about the market. We want to talk about the FTC thing that just came out with Opendoor. We want to talk about what's happening in the market. Ian of Austin, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Man, I'm good. It's been an interesting week. I'll say it that way. And I know we have a lot to talk about, but I'm curious. I'm curious how other people are feeling about what they're seeing in the market. That's my first question of the day. What are your thoughts on the market based on hearing about the interest rates, seeing properties sit on the market for a little bit?
Yeah.
What is everybody else seeing? And what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting is that I have, especially here in Austin, I have 2 listings that should have already gone under contract that are been sitting a little bit. And then I have another one we just listed, and I expected, we priced it lower than what we should have trying to, price it under where it would have sold and price it, 9-10% below. And it's, not very many showings this last week. So very interesting.
Same here. I have a listing that's kind of been struggling a little bit. Perfect house. It's a great, so again, you go back to March, this would have been fought over. It would have been fought over. And today, not even, you're rarely getting showings. It's really strange. And we've reduced the price multiple times. We've had talked about open houses and everything. It's challenging. But I'm noticing, I don't know if you've seen this as far as the active listings. So they're like 800 and something active listings, 1,600 price decreases. If you remember last time we did this, so 2 weeks ago, there were over 2,000 price decreases.
Yep. Well, that also changed. Here's what you're talking about here. So as of right now, the last 7 days, we have almost 1,200 new active listings, 1,900 price decreases. But here's what's also pretty interesting too. Almost 300 withdrawals, 144 expired. So withdrawn just means that somebody pulled it off the market.
Withdrawn.
It's a lot. Expireds 144, and then 129 holds. Holds is a little bit different because it's basically like, hey, it's not on the market, but we're still selling it, but it's not on the market. Withdrawn could be, somebody fires their agent or something like that. The back on market though, 246. So I'd imagine some of those withdrawals are coming back on market. Some of those expireds are back on market. And then, I've seen quite a few people back out of properties recently. Or I haven't personally had anybody, but I've heard of a lot of people that are having people back out. So this could be back on market for that reason. What are your thoughts on people backing out of contracts?
Oh, absolutely. I've got multiple situations where the buyers are under contract with a new construction, for example, which might still show on here. Not all of them do, but some of them will. And if they want to go another route, well, that ends up being a back on market, even though it's a new construction home.
What was this? What did you say? I was reading the comments.
I said I have some clients that are talking about backing out of a new construction home, getting a resale, and that new construction will end up being listed as a back on market, even though it's a new construction.
Right. Couple good questions here. Do you have any idea how many homes are on the market are investment homes versus primary homes? If you look, I don't know for say, so I don't have like a perfect stat for that, but if you look up residential properties on the market right now, it shows just under 10,000, which is a lot. If I change that search, and let's see, can I do it on here? Under condition, property type, remarks, restrictions. Hold on. There's a thing I can do on here to change it to occupied type. Vacant. So some of these, keep in mind, when I put vacant, sometimes people will put the owners there, even though it's vacant, and you look at the pictures. So that takes it to, holy smokes.
Does it reduce it tremendously?
Whoa, that's so many homes, Ian. Think about it. We're at 10. Look at it. 5,600.
It's not sharing.
Almost.
You're not sharing.
Oh, I'm not sharing. Oh,
no.
That's my bad. My bad. Sorry. I'm over here like telling stories. Okay, look. So I told you we were at 10, just under 10,000 homes in the market. If you look at this is how many are vacant currently.
So that's huge.
That's huge. So
that's huge. For people that may or may not understand this, like if you're selling a house, many times people can't afford to vacate their house, buy another house, and let that one sit, right? So generally, or the larger majority is that the vacant homes are investor homes. It could be something like an Opendoor. They buy the house, it sits vacant. So that's an example. Or someone who may be a move up buyer move up buyer and has a little bit of cash, but rarely, or it's a lot less likely that people have vacant homes if they're not an investor of some sort. So that's one way to look at it. Another thing is if you look at the house and you look at the pictures and you see that, there's still carpet in the living room and they still haven't updated the builder fixtures and the house has been there for 20 years and rented out. Yeah. I mean, there are ways to look at it, but there's no direct data to answer your question.
Right. Here's Kristina's on. What's up, Kristina? I'm in South Padre, so I don't have the same good Wi-Fi I normally have, so apologize. But so we were talking about here, more than half are vacant. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, Ian, there's sometimes you'll see a property that it'll say owner, but it's actually vacant.
Yes.
So this isn't taking those into consideration. This is just ones that are stated vacant. So we could almost guesstimate. One thing I want to actually look at about that though, too.
I don't think we talk about why that is. Sometimes people don't want to mark their property as vacant because of, is that me? Sometimes people don't want to mark their properties as vacant for crime reasons. So I just want to mention that too, because you're probably thinking, why would somebody not mark their property as vacant? It's easier to show.
Here's another thing to think about too. If I change this stat to be 2021 build or newer, that's 2,600 homes. So think about that. Most of those are brand new homes. Some of those 2021 homes I've seen are, they could be somebody just purchased them, but if you go 2021 or newer, that's almost getting close to a third of the properties on the market are brand new. That's 2,600.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's more that are not. And those are all the ones that are on the MLS. A lot of these builders that I'm seeing is, and I have a client that was looking in San Marcos on the websites, the builder websites, it shows the inventory is active. But when you go in the MLS, it's not on the MLS.
Yep.
So they have inventory that's kind of like a ghost inventory. We just put one under contract in San Marcos. Check this out. More than 20 grand off the list price plus 20 grand in incentives and it was already priced pretty well, and 20 grand in incentives for like lender incentives and stuff like that. It's not bad, especially in San Marcos under 500K.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But, I showed, what's interesting, Ian, is I showed properties this weekend. I had a client that was in town, and what was interesting is how hard it was to show luxury properties. We're looking at homes between like 1.2 to like 1.7. And I typically set up my stuff to be on showing time. So usually if somebody schedules, it comes to me and my client at the same time. We'll text back and forth. Hey, is this a good time? Yep. And then one of us approves it. Do you know how hard it is to get a hold of agents right now? It's still hard to get a hold of agents. So they're putting in there, I have to text the owner or text them, and then I got to wait for, 2 hours to hear back. It's so freaking frustrating.
And some of the luxury properties, the agents are, they want to be there as well. So you have some, it
depends on the price.
Coordinate with them to be there as well as you and your clients, and it gets a little much.
So this is funny. Can you imagine what an acre of land is going for? And Taylor is Samsung is serious about 9 more semiconductors. Cedar Park right now, I have almost an acre property that went under contract for just under 500, which was crazy. But it's still going under contract in a crazy market like this. So investors are pulling out. The hike in rates, taxes are pushing them out. This is something I talked about yesterday in my video that came out yesterday, Ian. And people get mad at me because they just don't, I guess maybe they just don't fully understand this. But one of the comments I got, so I talked about there's a new proposition or a new bond that they're putting on that the city council approved. And now it's going to bond for voters because we can only raise taxes 3.5% per year in Austin. But if we put it to a vote or put it as a bond, we can add that in there. So they basically have this bond that's going to give another $350 million. Remember last year when I got upset about Prop A and B, and I said they have $300 million in here, but it's not going to do anything. Well, guess what? That money that we've already given is already run out. So now they're adding another $350 million to affordability. And so that being said, I don't even remember what my point was anymore, but now that's going to a vote. So another 350 million. Oh, is about, so I explained to people that, one of the things we're going to talk about is rental rates. And I try to explain this and people just don't believe me when I tell them this, but if rental rates, part of the reason why rental rates go up, number one, yes, is demand, but number two, landlords have to raise their values, or most landlords will raise their values or their prices because of taxes. So we saw a 56% increase in taxes this year for most people. And if you can't homestead as an investor, it's going to go up whatever they'd say. So we have to tack that on to somebody else. And so somebody wrote in the comments, oh, well, a one bedroom went from 2,500 to 3,700. This is all greedy. Well, you have to understand, and this is, I think people need to understand this. Single landlords that rent properties like this, they have to do that. Otherwise, if they're not making ends meet, they have to decide, and they're seeing values come down potentially. If as a long-term play, it still makes sense. But if you're not just covering the note or covering it, it doesn't make sense as an option. So they have to raise the rents. On an apartment complex.
I don't know that people understand. Some of these investors, they get in and they're actually net negative, right? So they're paying more to own the property than their mortgage rate. So because of that, they have to eventually catch up. They're buying this as an investment. They're not just storing money, right? So yeah, there are lots of reasons why an investor has to raise the rent. It's not just a 1-for-1 like people assume.
Yeah. I like this. Has anybody heard vote for budget cuts? But somebody was telling me, that we went from $2,500 a month for a one bedroom to $3,700 a month. So that's crazy. That's crazy. That's just people being greedy. I would imagine, yes, some people are being greedy. I can't discount that. But here's a fact that people just don't understand. I am in the middle of trying to hire an assistant. You would not believe what I'm having to offer to hire an assistant, a good quality assistant. It is insane for what an assistant work is. Secondly, if you look at an apartment complex and the apartment complex has to hire staff and staff doesn't want to be there, you have to pay them more. So it makes sense that a one bedroom would get more expensive as cost of living goes up because now you got to pay your staff more. Now, when you got to, especially right now, how hard is it to get anybody out to fix anything on a property? It is ridiculous. I had to get my lawn mowed for my one of my investment properties, New Braunfels. It took my wife like 7 hours yesterday just to find somebody to mow it. So it's costing more money. So when we think about these complexes going out, they get hit with more taxes than we do as landlords. They have to pay more for staff and all this other stuff. So are there ways to reduce and help affordability? Yes. Part of it's not having crazy taxes. I mean, what are your thoughts on all that?
Oh, I agree. It's like average cost to get someone out to mow your lawn. Let's say a 1/4 acre lot is going to be $50. And that's if you have it planned. It's going to be 70 or 80 in an emergency to get them to come out. Yeah. So that all of those little costs are, they add up. And then there's like warranties, there's insurance that you have to pay as a landlord. There are a lot of things that people kind of take for granted when they're renting. Yeah. Like rental insurance is $10 a month. It doesn't even, it's not a lot of money. The landlords don't pay that. They don't pay $10 a month. I just wanted to comment on that Taylor thing super quick. It's about 45,000 an acre right near the Samsung factory. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm off my soapbox. If you didn't watch the video from yesterday, go watch it after the podcast. I do want to get into kind of our topics here. We will answer more questions about what's happening in the market, what we're seeing in the market, but I do want to get to some of these topics. Number one, I'm not sharing yet. The FTC takes action to stop online home buying firm Opendoor, basically for deceptive, misleading practices. I want to hear your take on this, Ian, and I'll start scrolling through this.
I mean, my first question is 62 million seems low.
Yeah.
Right? Like, think about how many people were impacted and how much Opendoor has brought in, and they were only fined 62 million. I don't know how many people really dig into like how much Opendoor is profiting versus, let's say, a traditional route for a realtor.
Yeah.
A lot of people love the convenience of it, but on the back end, their fees often end up being much higher than if they were to go a traditional route. So you're paying a lot for the convenience, but it's not very apparent when you're looking at their website. So, or when you're talking to them, and in the option period, you have a 30-day option period. Essentially, they can walk away anytime, puts you in a really tough spot.
So what's pretty interesting is I put out a video where I interviewed somebody who went to go do the Opendoor route, and they broke down like, hey, they wanted to hit me with these expenses and this expenses, and they told me it was cheaper than using a realtor. And really, when you looked at the numbers, it wasn't. It was almost identical. It was pretty close. What's hysterical though, I put a lot of judgment in a lot of my videos, or I definitely have a bias and lean in certain ways in videos, but I tried to be as down the middle the possible as I could on that video. It is my least liked video out of any video I've done. And the comments are like, here we go, realtor telling you blah, blah, blah. Well, here we go. Here we go, because all the things I said in that video pop up. Number one, they're saying Opendoor used projected market values when making. So this says, so I can highlight it so you can read it along with me here.
Yeah.
It says that Opendoor also violated the laws by misrepresenting that Opendoor used projected market value prices when making an offer to buy a home, and when in fact the prices included downward adjustments in the market. So that was one thing that we looked at. And when I talked to him, Opendoor made money from disclosed fees when in reality it made money by buying low and selling high. I mean, any investor, I mean, so this is something that we've said, like why people would go to Opendoor is just convenience. So if Opendoor, I think, had marketed that it was, look, we're convenience, we're going to give you a fair value for your home, and it's going to be convenient for you, versus saying things, I think they probably wouldn't have had any fines. 62 million sounds low to me, but I mean, I don't know how much they made off people. So consumers likely would have paid the same amount in repair costs, whether they sold their home through Opendoor or traditional sales. So the guy I had on, Opendoor didn't even do an inspection. They came and did a visual walk through the outside, and then tried to hit him with like, I think it was like $14,000 or $17,000 in repairs. And it was like a fairly nice house. Yeah, and they'd never been in the house. How can you assess those repairs? So that's definitely something we talked about. Go ahead.
I mean, I obviously don't work for them, but I've done probably 5 or 6 deals with Opendoor where they were either the seller or I was representing a buyer. And I think that they make assumptions based on the age of the house and the area. I think it's just like high level general assumptions. Hey, this house is 4 years old. It probably has this much. Let's go ahead and toss that number in there just to see what happens. And most people not reading the fine print are like, oh, well, I mean, this is our chance. We might as well accept it. We're already profiting X amount over anyway. So they just accept it.
Right. Yep. The next one, consumers likely would have paid less in costs by selling to Opendoor than they paid to traditional fees. And this is where I think was the big one for me, is like when we did math, like apples to apples, the gentleman that we had on ended up like, by selling the traditional route, I think he had made like another like 20 grand versus, I have to go back and watch the video. It's been a while, but my thoughts on this overall, I think Opendoor got off light. If the FTC did this investigation and found these things that they were actually misrepresenting things, I think they got off pretty light. I think It's interesting to me because even Opendoor said, "Oh, we didn't do anything wrong." So like their response to it's like, we're going to pay this fine even though we didn't do anything wrong.
Kristina brings up a really good point. It gives the precedent for other people to sue.
Yep.
So that's a really good and valid point.
Kristina, are you still on here? I want to make sure you're still on here because there's something I want to say here. I want to make sure you're here for it. There's one thing that I think is very interesting in this with the FTC. And that what she just said is exactly what I'm thinking. And I'm thinking it in a different way. So this gives people the precedent to sue. If you know right now or pay attention to, there's been this long class action lawsuit against realtors for not deceptive practices, but basically that we've all come together and said 6% is the standard commission, right? And so there's this lawsuit saying that basically it's what's it called when you
price fixing,
right? Basically it's price fixing. Now commissions are negotiable for sure, but I think this leaves this open for that lawsuit. So I think this was an end around to get that lawsuit more legs to stand on. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't know what that would mean for the industry in general, because we have to go back to this. I don't think most of these realtors are going to be here anyway. I think it's all going to kind of reset. Yeah. We're going to have a reset in the next 2 years. There's going to be people have to learn, like thoroughly learn what they're doing when they're representing clients. So I don't know that a law like that will have legs. I don't really know. I don't know.
Yeah. Dinosaur D, welcome, man. Said, this is why companies keep doing this. It's basically, it's because they slap on the wait, hold on. I got to read this side on the side. This is what companies keep doing this. Oh man, quit moving. It's because it's a slap on the wet lettuce leaf for them, aka cost of doing business. Yeah.
I love the quote that just came in from James. We got to put that up there.
James, welcome. James started off hot from the beginning. Good job, James. Opendoor and Zillow have been the worst offenders in overinflating home worth.
Very, very true. Well, not in every market, but especially in the Austin market. They've picked up a lot of homes here.
You know, what's interesting is, what was that? There was a stat recently, Ian, that said it was like 30% of homes purchased in Texas was like 30% of homes, something around there, 28% of homes in Austin were purchased by, I forget what
like
the
term is.
No, it was institutional investors is the term they used. And so I searched through this article and I searched the data to find out what their definition of a institutional buyer. It was basically anybody paying cash or buying with an LLC. Well, if you think about it, last year, all these iBuyers were heavily in the market. So they'd buy and then resale. They fix them up, resell. So a lot of the institutional buyers last year, they didn't break it down even further than that. They should have broken it down to show how many were iBuyers, how many were actually like BlackRock or whoever the companies are, and how many were like mom and pops, right? Like you or I buying an investment home. And I think that would have been better, because when you put out a blanket stat like that, like, oh, okay, 30% of homes were sold to investors. What if it was only like 15% of homes actually sold to investors, 15% were iBuyers flipping? That's a large amount to flip, but there's opportunity there because there's no inventory. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree. I think that the data needs granularity in order for people to be able to understand what the heck they're looking at. Otherwise, it's so high level that the numbers can be, they can be miscommunicated any which way. And it's the same with everything. All these articles that come out. So, for example, like the 62 million, that's basically $1 million a state. Little less than that, but a little more than that. But I'm just saying, it's not a lot of money. And but where are they operating most heavily, right? I think they're operating very heavily in the Austin market. I think the California, I think the Seattle market, any tech heavy markets.
Yeah,
tech heavy markets. It was a click button solution.
Kristina, welcome back. She was gone for 2 comments. She's welcome. She's back. Zillow actually has my home priced lower than it would sell for. It has been like that for 2 years. They still think my home is a vacant lot. Yeah, I mean, I had a client that I met with. We're looking at a Rimrock home for about 1.3 to 1.5 million, in that range. And, I gave them like a dead price. I'm like, this is where it would list. This is based on what we're seeing in the market. And they're like, oh, so you don't think our home is worth what Zillow is? And I was like, I mean, I don't trust Zillow, but what did Zillow say? Because I never look at Zillow. And it was like $5,000 less than what I stated. So I was like, wow, Zillow is actually kind of right on this one. But you have a lot more data for that neighborhood versus, most neighborhoods.
Zillow, for anybody who's like questioning, well, why is Zillow off with their data? So a lot of times, if they pool their data, they're just doing a radius around the location. They're not actually going and saying this particular neighborhood. And then if there are transactions that have been, let's say, gifted to somebody, right? Yeah. And so it was the numbers were off. Zillow wouldn't have that data. Like there are a lot of things that that it takes a second eye to look at that can't be picked up yet by just an algorithm.
Right. Well, and here, I mean, a lot of people were using Redfin. I don't know what happened with Redfin. I don't know if there's a lawsuit, but Texas is a non-disclosure state, and they were disclosing data to people. I want to keep moving on. If you have more questions about this or more input, I definitely want to hear about that. But I want to get to this next article. We have a few articles we're going to get to. Nancy, welcome, Nancy. You're here. You made it on a Wednesday at 3 p.m. So Oracle is set to start rounds of layoffs. So far in the Austin area, it says some Austin employees impacted by job cuts in marketing. I mean, it's a great article to write, but let's look at least a dozen local employees. So not that many employees were let go. But obviously we're seeing big tech layoffs. What are your thoughts on stuff like this popping up?
Yeah, it's not that many right now. But being that Oracle is one of the, what did they say, top 15 companies, employers here, that's a little disconcerting. And then later in the article, it announced some of the others that are an impact. So Netflix, Carvana here, Tesla, obviously we've seen. And if it becomes a trend around tech companies, well, Austin, I mean, we've grown so substantially because of the tech industry. So I think that's going to be a factor. Just to keep an eye on. Something to keep an eye on is all.
Yeah. So this is what one of the employees said. It says one employee with the company Oracle's cloud marketing cloud organization described layoffs as organized restructuring. Others reference widespread layoffs at Oracle, ACX, or Oracle advertising customer experience. So it sounds like there's going to probably be more layoffs coming. Well, I mean, obviously we last week had Sarah on, and a clip that we put out was talking about the Biden administration changing the term recession. But some people, and on my on the channel, I put up a poll to see how many people thought we were actually in a recession versus. So the question, the responses were yes, no, or too early to tell. 76% of people said we were in a recession currently. So
you also have the CEO of Google and the CEO of Meta, aka Facebook, that have both said, "Hey, we." And there was another company that have said, "Hey, we're kind of fluffy when it comes to employees." Right. So that seems to be a trend among a lot of the tech CEOs right now.
Interesting. Yeah. So in the article that you stated too, the tech industry has been especially vulnerable in hiring turbulence in recent months. The U.S. economy teetering on the brink of recession, a July 28 report for Indeed indicated that job postings in the country's tech hubs, San Francisco, Seattle, and Austin, were cited decline down 8.4%. I think one of the things I'd heard with Tesla too, it was the fact that they were saying that some of these were jobs that just hadn't filled yet. So they were just not hiring for those positions. So it could be, if you look at Austin, we're still 2.6, maybe 2.5 months or 2.5 or 6% unemployment rate, which is like stupid low. So maybe maybe they restructured some of these. Do you think that this is going to be these little cracks that we're seeing? We'll call these little cracks, right? Little, tech companies like this starting to say, hey, we're either not going to move as many people to Austin or we're going to lay off. Do you think these cracks in the facade could be what brings Austin down a peg or sends us into a housing problem?
Well,
I guess that's the question.
It goes back to the question that I ask probably every time we do a REALMigos podcast. And it's, if people could choose to live in either place, people that were relocating, specifically people that were relocating, if they could choose to live where they were or here, many of them moved for the job opportunity or maybe something political, right? But mostly it's the job opportunity, right? And so if the job opportunity...
I did a post on the overturning of Roe versus Wade, how and the recent Texas rules when it comes to that, how that would impact. It was kind of mixed on that as well. I mean, it was probably like 50-50 what people thought it would be an impact versus people that didn't, and people thought it's too early to tell. So, I mean, I don't know if that's an impact. I mean, you'll have to write that in the comments if you think that's an impact. I don't want to get too much into that topic, but you and I have talked about that topic as well.
Yeah, and that's why I go back to just saying mostly it's for the money and the quality of life. And if somebody's living on the beach in California, coming to Austin, unless you know what you're expecting, it's just a different style of living. And if you don't have to relocate, or if you can go back, I could see that being an impact. And I always have. I've always seen that. Yeah,
wasn't it Aaron or somebody in the comments a couple of weeks ago said that? I don't think you were on the live stream for that one, but he said that his neighbors were being sent back to California.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm talking specifically if most things remain the same. So if you have a $10 million house in California and you come here and you have a $10 million house, your life isn't going to change a whole lot, right?
Well, I mean, the next article is going to go into, if you're moving from California because your rents are too expensive and you're moving to Austin, whose rents are also more expensive
market.
Where would you rather be? Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the problem with some of these tech companies that they're starting to face, is that Austin grew so quickly. I mean, let's be honest. We always had a lot of growth, but it was partly the pandemic. And then when Elon announced that they were coming here, that is when I think the market really just took off. So I think we got drunk on the Elon juice, and now I think everybody's a little hungover.
No, the prices were good also, right? Like you were able to get a house for $200,000, $250,000 before that announcement.
J-Rod, welcome, says Austin market strength is in its stable employment in state government, large medical facility employers. Then you need to go back and look at tech growth driving expansion. Yep.
There's a lot of medical for sure. That's a big one. I think state and government, that's including things like like UT.
Oh yeah. Right?
And Dell's been here forever, and they own lots of companies. We've been stable forever, and I think that's one thing that the reason why Austin stays so stable is because we have such a variety of different industries that we support. So it's great. I
mean, we've become more tech dependent for sure, so that doesn't necessarily help, but that has become a bigger thing. I mean, to J-Rod's point. What's pretty interesting though, I like these comments. Moved here for affordable housing, but definitely missed the Bay Area. So it's definitely still cheaper than the Bay Area. Even if we look at sold prices.
Than the Bay Area, but how many people really love the weather here? Like really, I am one of those people. I'm fine with it being 100 degrees for the next 2 months. I'm fine with that. I don't know if I'll be able to do that
for over 100 degrees for the next 2 months. I'm looking at my wife off camera here, trying to see. She's not listening, but trying to see if she loves the heat as much as you do. Her face did this.
No way, man. I'm gonna go wakeboarding tomorrow. I'm good. I love this. This is good. I'm cool.
Yeah, we had to. So it's funny. So we came down. We're in South Padre right now. So in South Padre, it's 102 right now, and it's probably like 105 in Austin. So I definitely could kick the AC on in here. All right, so let's keep going to the next topic here. Keep dropping comments below, everybody. We love you for doing that. So the 12 best U.S. cities for renters, and none of them are on the West Coast. Shocker. But this is a pretty interesting article. I don't want to give away who the top 10 is. One of these, I want you to drop in the comments below. One of these is a Texas city that's in the top 12. I want to hear from you who you think is in the top 12. Answer is you're going to be shocked either way. Number 12 is Fargo, North Dakota, as you can see on here. Nobody wants to live in Fargo. Sorry, Fargoians. While major cities like New York and Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Chicago populate the bottom half of the rankings, smaller cities and suburban enclaves in the Southwest and Midwest occupy the top half. Columbia, Maryland, a planned community outside Baltimore, ranked first. And markets in Arizona, Texas, Iowa, and Dakotas populate a good chunk of this. And a lot of this came from this derived article right here, which was a Redfin article talking about rents and landlords and budgets and things like that. But the top 10 metros for the fastest rising rents year over year: Cincinnati, Seattle, Austin, number 3 at 32%. Nashville,
32%.
Yeah, 32%. New York, Nashville, look at that. So everybody moving to Nashville instead of Austin, you're not getting much better right there. 32, 31%.
Well, here's what's happening though. Here's what's happening with Nashville.
San Antonio. San Antonio's number 10.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get people to leave Austin or anything like that, but the property tax rate in Tennessee is abysmal. There's almost nothing compared to Texas.
Jaden thinks
great
San
for
Antonio.
Investors, great for primary residents.
How is Bastrop? Still pretty nice, cheap. I mean, I drove through Bastrop. You know, you or I were in Houston last week, and I drove back through Bastrop, and I was like, I could move here. And then I got to about Buc-ee's, and I was like, no, this is still too far. But yeah, a good spot if you're looking at Tesla. I still want to hear from people. Who do you think out of all the Texas cities, what is in the top 12 best to rent? But continue. I cut you off there, Ian.
No, you're good.
You were talking about something important.
Yeah, I'm sure it was something important. Dinosaur D said Tennessee doesn't have access to beaches, but they have mountains, right? And people like that. They have rivers. Like I've gone rafting through there, so it's nice.
So, all right, I want to hear. Let's see. Let's go to the top. I'm gonna get here. So this was a pretty important article, I felt, and I want to bring it on here just because you have a lot of people that are now nervous about the market, so they're going to rents. But one thing that was interesting on here, and maybe it was the Redfin article, was saying that it's actually slowing down. So the rate of appreciation is actually now starting to, asking rents up 14% year over year, but it's actually down from 17%. So this is nationwide. Austin's still, I mean, man, it's interesting because in a neighborhood that I have a listing, we're talking about maybe putting it up for rent right now. And there's 4 sitting on the market, all between. So people talking about $3,700 a month for a 1-bedroom. So just south of downtown in Gray Rock, you have 3,000 square foot homes trying to rent for $3,600 a month, not renting. So it's maybe not as bad as people think. I think definitely the media. Do you think the media like goes a little far on things and just tries to like overhype things, Ian? Can't be, right? Oh, I'm frozen or he's frozen.
No, I hear you.
Oh, okay. You muted yourself. All right. Yeah. This is bad radio. All right. So let's go look. Let's look at this list. All right. Let's go. Did anybody even get it right? Let's see in the chat. Did anybody get it right?
Well, it's funny because when I saw it, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, right?
It makes perfect sense.
I I want to see you, not charts. Okay. Yes, we will take the charts away. Mountains, Mount Bonnell. Let's see. There are tons of beaches in Tennessee. Oh, wait, misspelled that. Got it. Upstate New York is cheap. All right. So here's a list. Number 9, El Paso, Texas is on the best places for renters.
If
Eileen,
you love brown, the color brown, that is the place for you.
Eileen,
if you
you're from El
have
Paso. Would you go rent there?
5 minutes to Mexico, that is the place for you.
Yeah. What's interesting on here is the top half of this, and I would not expect this: Gilbert, Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona, Chandler, Arizona.
Scottsdale surprises me.
Yeah, Scottsdale definitely surprises. Chandler's nice. I used to live in Chandler. Gilbert's a little far. Scottsdale's nice.
So wait a minute. Are all of these these are all college towns? Yeah. Scottsdale isn't, but at least
I don't know. Columbia, Maryland, Columbia, Overlook, Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas, but Sioux Falls. I mean, those aren't necessarily Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah. So Chandler's not in Arizona. I mean, Tempe. So no, they're not. I mean, they're close to a big college, the best college, Arizona State.
I think one of the questions is, would people leave here to go to one of those places?
Oh, I don't know. I would go back to Phoenix, but it's hot. So
no.
Phoenix wasn't bad because like you're 3.5 hours from Flagstaff, which is okay skiing. It's not the greatest skiing. You're 8 hours from San Diego, less than 8 hours to LA. So, you're not too far, and easy plane flights. I don't know. I miss Phoenix. Hey baby, you want to move back to Phoenix? Right? No, she said no. I'll have to flip the camera around later so you can see it. What, Mark? All of these places with only one stoplight in town. Nice.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Next one. Let's get to the next one. Let's keep going. Okay. So this is one we'll talk about briefly. Lucy in Disguise costume shop in South Congress to close by the end of the year. It's one we should have talked about too is, what's the name of that place we like off 6th Street? Zitejas off in downtown is set to close as well. Apparently it's hard to own a business in downtown Austin, but what are your thoughts on Lucy in Disguise closing down after a long, long time?
Do we know why?
If you give me your thoughts, I'll pull it up.
It
says Lucy in Disguise with Diamonds made the announcement on Instagram Tuesday, thanking its customers for their support through the years. There are a lot of there are not a lot of year-round costume shops in the world, and we're very grateful to our customers for their ongoing support. The store posted, "We loved being a source of creative and inspiration for our parties, plays, and production. It has been a pleasure to fulfill our costuming dreams and fantasies." See, we saw the sign. Okay, that's somebody that's reading it.
So the reason why,
you can find basically they probably aren't turning a profit anymore. One of the quotes is, "You can find like stuff that's not on Amazon." So, I mean, if I'm going to go somewhere to buy a costume, I'm buying it on Amazon, just to be honest.
Well, I mean, you got to be able to try it on too, but it's also all year long. That's pretty interesting. It's a unique business. I think my worry is that Austin is losing a lot of the uniqueness of it, a lot of the businesses. In fact, I was just picking up a buddy from the airport, and I saw a billboard, and I'm pretty sure it's a double entendre. It's a play on words, but it says, "We're still Austin." Like they had to remind you that it's still Austin, Texas when people are visiting, And it just makes me worry a little bit, right? We've talked about that on one of our episodes about just like, is it still, does it still feel like Austin, the Austin you moved to?
I mean, I moved here 10 years ago. It's not the same Austin.
Yeah.
So the owner said there are a few driving factors behind the decision to close the doors. First, he said the pandemic hit them really hard, although they were able to weather that. He had supply chain issues were still a problem. We order from a lot of different companies. We source from a lot of different places. It's really been a challenge to keep the store as well stocked as people are used to being. So, I mean, it sounds like a lot of it was the pandemic costs, and he owns the store. So it would make sense that he'd sell it. So it looks like he's going to sell it is what
his
I'm
real estate taxes, right?
Real
He's still
estate
paying
taxes.
the property taxes.
Yeah. So there's that. That's sad. Yeah. I mean, to answer the question that you said, it's definitely changed. It's definitely not the same Austin that I fell in love with, more than 10 years ago when we moved here. But what are your thoughts?
I expect change. I expect growth. I'm not dissatisfied, but there were a few things where as they were leaving, I felt it a little bit, right? Like especially I remember with the Rainy Street kind of getting destroyed. In my mind, it was like, why are they putting all this up? This was a really cool spot. And that's when I realized, you know what, it's going to change. Gonna have to move on to the next spot.
What's interesting is a lot of those places that closed during the pandemic. I mean, look, we're getting a Hermes, right? Or we got a Hermes.
Oh no, we have it. South Congress is kind of ridiculous now.
It's a clown
but they
show
used to
now.
have all the food trucks and stuff. Like that was the place to go. It was just the vibe. That
and Rainy Street. Yeah, you're right. Rainy Street. I miss Rainy Street. I mean, I went down there the other day and it's just like you look up and you're like, where am I? This is like downtown light.
You're in a concrete jungle.
Yeah. Where dreams are made of, right? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but but think about some of the places that closed down during the pandemic. Like if you didn't go to them and they were just a nostalgic place, then was the food really that good if it's not a place you went all the time? I feel like some of these places that closed down were just tourist traps, right? To say the least. And so some of these places that closed down, it's like, okay, yeah, that was a tourist trap. The food, like you went there just to hang out and enjoy the ambiance. You really didn't go there for the food, or maybe they had good drinks and you just went there for the drinks. So I feel like the pandemic kind of weeded out some of those places that unfortunately needed to go. I think one of those places that I might get ridiculed for this, but what's that place that puts the sign out? That does the sign all the time?
The El
Arroyo. Have you tried their food?
Yeah. No, I've never even had it, but I like all their stuff. That's a great point. I remember when I first visited, one of our friends that had taken us around to look at everything in Austin before we decided to move, and it was almost instant after we had experienced it. I remember I was asking for coffee. I was like, can we go to a Starbucks or something? And she looked at me like she was going to stab me in the leg. She's like, you're not going to go to Starbucks in Austin. There are way too many local coffee shops that we need to support.
Yeah.
But look at how many people go to Starbucks is all I'm saying.
I try not to, like, that's why I go to like Cosmic or.
Yeah. Cosmic's good.
There are some.
I like Genuine Joe's. It's a great spot. A lot of them.
Have you ever tried? Where's that place at? Cenote, whatever they call it.
Cenote.
Yeah, that's a good place.
Halcyon.
Okay.
They have a few of those.
Summer Moon's become a pretty big chain. So like I like Summer Moon just because they have tacos in the morning, but it's okay. I like going to those places like that you can get the ambiance, decent coffee, Wi-Fi. What's that? Oh, Radio is expanding. Did you see that? Radio Coffee in South Austin. Thunderbirds is another one. What's the one on the
Subs?
No, I think isn't there one called Thunderbirds? What's the place on the east side with a really good Lazarus. There's a place on the east side.
Yes,
Ian, you got to go check it out. Great coffee. They brew beer there, and or they have a brewery there, and their tacos are legit. They're better than your Veracruz tacos. Fight me.
Oh, stop it. No, let.
Your Veracruz horchata. I lean jealous.
Oh my gosh, man. It's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that to say, I think that we need to, this isn't some kind of campaign or anything, but supporting the local businesses that you want to stay around is the only way they're going to stay around. So
remember Keep Austin Beautiful?
Whatever that was never, was that a thing?
Yeah. KAB, Keep Austin Beautiful. It was like a whole like incentive to like go clean up and pick up around Austin and keep Austin clean. I haven't seen much from those people in a long time. So, all right, let's keep rolling here. Keep the comments coming. I am going to talk about this. Some housing markets slam the brakes while the value of investments in other cities stay strong. This is an insider article. Ian, did you have a chance to read through this one? I kind of gave it to last minute. It says, as home price growth slows on waning demand, Andy Walden, the vice president of enterprise research at mortgage data provider Black Knight, says that the U.S. real estate, Black Knight's an analytic company, says the U.S. real estate market has reached a turning point in some regions more than others. To be expected with rates rising as quickly as they have, we are going to see a slowdown in prices, but certainly we are not seeing the market slam on the brakes very quickly here through the summer months. Walden added, so we are or not?
That's the big one. Look at that.
We are now seeing the market slam on the brakes. Yes, we are now. It says Walden added the West Coast markets in particular are seeing the highest slowdown. Black Knight's data shows that the home prices have pulled back from their recent peak in popular markets like San Jose, Seattle, San Francisco, 5.1, 3.8, 2.8%. Indeed, the housing slowdown is escalating nationwide. Yada, yada, yada. So if the U.S. does enter a recession, which I started off by saying a lot of people feel we're in a recession, we're unlikely to see housing market crash like the Great Recession because the factors affecting the economy are different. In a housing report, because factors in the economy, according to a housing report, or even a continued economic downturn that doesn't reach recession levels will impact some local markets more than others. I mean, you and I are seeing this here. They go on to say popular migration destinations like San Jose, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Sacramento are the most at risk of home values dropping, while less trendy and more affordable markets, mostly those in the Rust Belt region, are likely to remain resilient. This is because demand from relocators and second home seekers tends to fall during the economic downturn. So basically, people aren't just going to be buying as many second homes, which is going to hurt things a little bit. But on the other side of that, as monthly mortgage rates skyrocket, buyers are quicker to back away from second homes than primary homes. So we're, basically seeing kind of a turning point in our economy. What are your thoughts on an article like this, Ian? Because the next one's going to be pretty interesting. The next one is the housing market correction takes an unexpected turn. So we're weaving a good story today. What are your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, there was a really good comment earlier, and we had pulled it up and we talked about it. But basically, I think it was J-Rod, who was talking about the stability of Austin market. And I think so, even if nationally the housing market is correcting, it is happening in Austin. There's no doubt about it. We are in the beginnings of we're at the early stages of this particular recession, which I don't think will be as strong. But what historical data do I have to back it up? Right? I know that Austin has weathered many of those storms without losing a large chunk of their value and their equity. The difference here is that we had so many people relocate here, and a lot of it was a lot of tech funded jobs and investments. So I think some of that is going to get hit pretty hard, but all of the other industries have kept it stable for the entire history of Austin. So I think we're pretty good.
Well, I mean, Graham Stephan put out a video the other day. I was actually going to do kind of a reaction video to it, but he was breaking down a video and the fundamentals of Dave Ramsey. And so basically breaking down the fundamentals of Dave Ramsey is going out saying there's not going to be a market crash. And he's basically saying, because we still have a lot of jobs, the fundamentals for people buying homes over the last few years have been strong. The equity people have, I mean, he made a lot of points, and they're very counter to what some of those channels out there are saying. So, which is pretty interesting. But even Dave Ramsey is saying that, hey, a turn in the market isn't going to be as bad as what people are thinking. So, the fundamentals have still been there. How big of a turn? I think that's the question. Are we in that turn starting now? I have some data, because people like data. I pulled some data. We saw a $53,000 price drop, right, from June to July. May to June. July's numbers aren't out yet. I pulled the data, Ian. I pulled it. People are going to be shocked when prices go back up for the July numbers. Sales will be down. Sales will be less. Prices will go up. I'm telling you. I'll show you how. But overall thoughts on this.
We've seen that repeated over and over with other markets, right? Like San Jose, for example. Like the prices still keep rising. They might have hit a little slump, but then it's up and up and up because the demand has always been there for people.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing here. I think Austin has always had the demand, but we didn't have such a large spike until recently. And
I can pull up that spike. It was a big spike. I mean, in the last 2 years, we went from a median price of around 420 to at the peak, 650, 667, now 613. I'll show you the stats, but I'm coming out. In fact, I'll pull it up right here. I pulled the data, and I pulled that the closed median for everything in Austin is 655. Now, they've been, every time I put this, and that's actually interesting. If you look at list price is 660. Close price is less, but it's still showing 100%. So I guess maybe it's not a big enough jump, but list price to close price is lower, yet 655 is the median. So now they're going to put, every time I do these, they're usually about 20 grand less. So I was looking at the prices the month before being around 630, 635. They came out at 615. So I imagine we'll see prices bump back up to the 630 price point. But regardless, from 420 to 630, 615, it's a $200,000 price bump in 2 years. We don't see that at all. I mean, that's like a 10-year run, right? So we saw that in 2 years. So prices will probably fluctuate.
There are a lot of people that bought houses 3 years ago that now have an extra $250,000 they didn't have before. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, and think about it too. If you bought a home, let's say you bought a home in 2019 for 420, okay, and you lived in it, put minimal things into it, and turn around and sold it for 620. Like now you have another 150, 175 grand to go put on the next home. So the fundamentals for a lot of these is that people had equity. In fact, there's a whole article about how Austin is the most equity rich. So, I mean, how much does Austin come down? I don't know. I just don't know. I couldn't tell you. But anyway, so Mark says, how much worse, better is the surrounding area compared to the Austin in terms of stability? We saw, what was it, Ian? It came down, 53,000 for the Austin numbers. And for the MSA, the area around Austin was only 13,000, went from 550 to 537. What are your thoughts on the suburbs fare, how they'll fare?
I think the suburbs are for the people that want to stay but couldn't afford to live in the city or didn't want to pay the prices to live in the city. And so I almost think it's more stable. I don't know if more stable is the word, but I think that it's going to be very stable in the suburbs because you still have a good opportunity to gain equity in the suburbs right now, or you have had anyway.
So
they haven't grown quite as fast.
Yeah. And Mohammed says sales were down and prices were up for Boca Raton. Pretty interesting. Rad's been talking about properties they put under contract recently. They got beat out by cash, and then they got a couple under contract under list price. Rad's been killing it, by the way, in New Braunfels. He's been killing it out there. You know what would be cool is if Rad joined Real Broker. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it'd be incredible if he joined Real Broker.
Yeah.
Bump our stock
and we
up.
could bring him on the podcast more.
Oh
and we
my
could talk about this fun stuff.
Yes.
I mean, that'd be great.
He could be a 4th and 5th and 6th Migo. So bring that quote back.
Which was it? Dinosaurs?
That last one.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting. So it's the savings that keeps them liquid will keep people afloat during hard times. I kind of agree with both, right? You have to have a good, a good amount of savings liquid, but having that equity gives people the freedom to make different decisions with their money. And, they're not going to go and spend all of their savings. Most people aren't going to go spend all their savings, but if they had to, they still have that equity to back it up. Where if you only had one or the other, you're in a tough spot. If you only had equity in your home, no savings, and then something major happened, that's going to hurt. That's what causes people to go into foreclosure and have to move.
What's interesting, Princess G is on. Princess listened to me. So they sold in February, and now they're buying another house and the price coming down. So good for you. VJ, and Rad said, yes, he's affirmative. He's coming. Just kidding. VJ, this is a really good comment because I think this is what a lot of people are running into. Said, we don't see the price going up on used homes in North Austin. What listed for 700 plus is reduced 10% and listed again yesterday after a month. So
I think you got to look at it like 2 years ago or 1 year ago, that house may have been 600,000, or the equity in that house, or the value of that house may have been 600,000. So it's still up, right? Like overall, it's still up. It's still a net positive, but it's down from what you saw a month or 2 months ago.
Yeah, for sure. That's in here. Let me see if I can pull it up. But on the chart that I normally put up and show, it shows kind of the sales of a year, and usually this time of year prices drop. Last year was significant. I think now that I'm seeing the July numbers out, maybe we don't see as significant as a downward trend, or maybe it bumps up faster. I don't know. Who knows in this market anymore? Only thing I know is that we've been able to negotiate below list price on a lot of properties. What was that?
Is school normal yet?
What do you mean by normal?
I guess that could be a loaded question. I mean, as far as the cycle of the way kids get into school and register, and parents relocating for school, and that is that back to a kind of a traditional cycle?
Yes. I mean, well, here in Texas, most the kids are back in school. I don't think the sessions have changed. I mean, we go back August 17th or whatever. Most schools will probably go back around that same time.
Yeah, I just ask because during the pandemic, that threw a wrench in everyone's plans, right? It's like now you can work remote. Now you can do this. Also, your kids couldn't go into class. And so all these things changed. And now you have a lot of these little private schools. And so it shifted pretty drastically. So if it's starting to get back, I think the real estate cycle, a lot of it followed what parents had to go through.
I think kids in school. What's interesting right now too, Ian, is I'm starting to see a lot of my clients who were third quarter buyers now starting to jump in, and I'm seeing some of those people that have been under contract on new construction waiver and go like, hey, I want to back out and get something else now. So it's definitely an interesting time. But what are your thoughts on people? I mean, we talked about it kind of at the beginning. What are your thoughts on people backing out of properties right now?
It's rough. It's a gamble. I think it's a gamble, but I think that there is definitely a potential to win, depending on what win means for you. If you're just trying to save money, that might be an option. If you want a house that was an inventory home and it's the one that you would have got, but you lost out because there were too many people bidding on it, well, that could be an opportunity for you to get exactly what you want. And if it comes to timeline, if you need to be in a house next month, but your builder, you can't figure out when they're going to be finished with your home, then you know that you can be set up and in a house next month and probably have, some incentives to do that as well.
Yep. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think anybody that's in that mindset or in that situation, I think you really have to take the numbers, put the numbers on paper in front of you to see what's actually going to work for you. Right.
Well, and when you're looking at these numbers, you got to look at how long you're going to plan to stay in that place.
Yep.
If this is something you're only going to stay in for 2 years and then move on with your life, then that's a very different scenario than something that you build for yourself and your family, and you're going to stay there for 10 years or better while your kids go through school. Very different conversation.
Yeah. Let's see. VJ says 2,400 under 500K, around 4% interest rate would be will ever be possible in the Austin market again. I mean, you can still find under 500 right now. Not very many 2,400 square feet. All right. I want to get to this Fortune article so we can get out of here soon. But Fortune has this article, the housing market correction takes an unexpected turn. It says the Federal Reserve has a simple solution, inflation fighting playbook, basically just raise rates. But here's what's interesting is over the past week, mortgage rates have declined fast. As of Tuesday, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate sits at 5.05, down from June. I'll show you it's actually back up to about 5.5%. Those falling mortgage rates give sidelined home buyers immediate relief. If a borrower in June took out a $500,000 mortgage at 6.25% rate, they pay about $3,100 monthly in principal and interest. At 5.05%, they pay $2,700 over the course of that same thing. So what's interesting about this article is just basically talking about kind of what we talked about last week with Sarah, is that the bond market, am I even showing this? Did I add it? Okay. Is that the bond market, the rates aren't set by the Fed, right? They usually are on the treasury yield. So it says right here, while the Fed doesn't directly set mortgage rates, man, I'm on this. Look at this. While the Fed doesn't directly set mortgage rate, its policies do impact how financial markets price both the 10-year treasury yield and mortgage rates. And expectation of the rising federal funds rate and the monetary tightening, financial markets increase both the 10-year treasury yield and mortgage rates. In expectation of a reduced federal funds rate and monetary easing, financial markets price down both the 10-year treasury yield and mortgage rates. The latter is what we're seeing now. So we're seeing a temporary relief. I don't think that rates are going to stay low for long. They're definitely going to probably come up. But what are your thoughts about buyers jumping in right now because they're seeing rates go down temporarily? Should they be jumping in, because that is $400 a month? It's a pretty big difference.
Oh, it is a very big difference. I think it still goes back to, if you can front load the savings by getting a house for essentially $100,000 less, if you're considering all these incentives and all these other things, and then your interest rate is 1% or 2% higher than what you were expecting to pay, that monthly payment might hurt, but again, you have to go back and do the math. If you're saving that much money, does the interest rate really impact you as much as you think it's going to?
Right. Well, here's what researchers are saying with Bank of America. So I don't know how well you take this, but they believe that there's a chance the 10-year treasury could slip from 2.7 to 2% over the coming 12 months. That could make mortgage rates fall between 4 and 4.5%. The trajectory of mortgage rates correlates closely with the trajectory of the 10-year. So it's possible that rates, I mean, people have been saying the rates could potentially come down towards the end of the year. Yep. This article kind of backs that up. So one of the questions earlier in here was, when are we ever going to see 3% again? I don't think we're ever going to see 3% again.
I like 4%.
This could bring 4%. Is not bad. I mean, it's
That's
not the
bad.
best, but do you think that this will bring people back?
So there were a lot of comments about how much cash on hand people have, right? Mm-hmm. So if it was really that much of and again, Austin is a very different market than a lot of other places in the United States, especially. But I think if people do have extra cash and they're worried that much about the rate, then they can buy down their rate if they have that kind of cash. So they can go in, if you get a 4% and you buy it down to a 3.5, good on you.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, cool. That's all I have. Rad has the last word. He says, you're not married to the rate. When rates go back to 4% and the market rages again, we'll never see 2s, 4s, or feel like 3s. So there you go. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to comment on that, I would love to be the person, and I hope everybody else, who's in the market feels this way. I would love to be the person that buys the house at a 4 or at a 5, and then immediately the rates drop, or really soon thereafter the rates drop, and I can get my interest rate lower. That's a very good scenario, because then I knew I got the house that I wanted. Yeah.
Well, that's basically what Sarah was saying last week, right? Sarah was like, don't buy down rates right now, and that's, if you're going to have the home for longer than 5 years and you're not going to ever change or refi, then don't buy down the rate. I mean, that's what makes sense. If you're going to have the home for 10 plus years, then it makes sense, because let's put it this way. So if it costs you, let's just throw a number out there, because buying rates can get expensive. Let's say to buy down 1% rate costs you 10 grand. Well, that saves you how much? $300 a month. Well, how many months does it actually make sense for you to break even? And this is, I think, what Sarah was trying to explain. So if you're buying down a rate and it's 10 grand, it's 10 grand out of your pocket, you could just be paying that. And if you're going to live in the house X amount of months and then refinance, then you can refi it later, then it would make sense. So it's one of those things. It's like, do you really take the money out of your pocket now or hold on to it? So Ian, last words. How on earth can a 20 to 28-year-old afford 500K houses? Make it make sense. Get a job at Tesla, being Elon's errand boy, and then or girl, and make $1 million working for Elon. There you go, easy.
Yeah, I think dual income helps. It helps. I think having people that buy houses earlier on help. If you have a house somewhere else and then you end up moving here, or if you buy an apartment or a duplex, like there are a lot of ways to make that happen. Just educate yourself as much as you can and get in with people that are able to do this, and you'll learn some tricks.
There's an adage, you're the product of the 5 closest people around you. So if those 5 people aren't great people, you need to change the people around you. So I've always put myself around pretty smart people just to make myself smarter. So maybe that's a route. All right, there you go.